Hello boys and girls, Ultimate Hero here. Welcome to Character Analysis. We've only got 3 characters left. Let's get the next second year out of the way. Today we have Yosuke Hanamura, well, as you already know, Brotag's best friend, and one of the major comic relief characters. But aside from that, let's get started right away. Of course, you know the typical order: character's personality, then why is this person of the Arcana, what parts of character's personality fit into this, character shadow and some symbolism, and his social link, or specifically Revelations. However, Yosuke will have a special topic. I think he's the last character that might have it, though. Yukiko might have it. I might have one. I'm not too sure. I still have to think about that. Anyway, Yosuke's special topic is his homophobia, and the claim that he's homosexual. And I may as well say the claim of his homophobia, which it can be easily explained, but you know the fan base is like, oh my god, yaoi, yaoi, yaoi. Any excuse for yaoi, they'll take it. But that's our fan bases for you. Anyway, let's get straight into this. Today we're starting off with, again, character's personality. Yosuke, as you already know, he's almost your typical teenager. He's your typical teenage male who's somewhat clumsy, somewhat paranoid at times, because he overreacts to certain situations. Cough cough, which leads to his so-called homophobia, but I'll be getting to that later. But of course, as you already know, he's the comic relief. He tries to be funny. At times he can be, at least to us, but to the to his friends, I should say. To his friends, it's not exactly the same case. It doesn't really make people laugh unless it's through his misery. Some people would enjoy that. Maybe Chie, I don't know. But again, all characters pretty much face their fair share of comic relief. It's just the most is from Yosuke, or out of his actions, and which leads to his consequences. Yosuke, though, despite how he can act like a complete idiot, he does have a good heart. He does try to have good intentions. Sometimes they come off as wrong. But Yosuke is also a bit of a moody person, but again, they're mostly out of good intentions. And Yosuke can surprisingly be understanding of people's situations, and has that willingness to help. But let's get straight into the next part. Why does he have his Arcana? Yosuke represents the Magician Arcana, which is usually the main character's best friend. Or, again, comic relief, but in this case, you already know, Magician stands for Originality, Creativity, Skill, Willpower, Self-Confidence, Dexterity, and the Sleight of Hand. Speaking of Sleight of Hand and Dexterity, that could explain why he is the fastest character in the game, at least among the main team. In fact, fun fact, I believe I mentioned it a few times, Yosuke, out of all the Persona users in the whole series, Yosuke has the best overall stats, which is kind of funny in my opinion. As I believe I already said, Magician Arcana also associates with action, and I believe I've already said power. It does represent power as well. Though you could say Emperor represents that. I think this means actual. By power, it actually means literal power, more or less strength. Emperor represented power in terms of leadership, and among the people, that you can control them, or that they're willing to follow you. That kind of power. This is straight up, I guess you could say, raw power. I'm not going with muscles, because that's more or less associated with strength, or literal meaning of strength. But anyway, Yosuke, as I've already said, aside from, you know, how he can actually is quite dexterous, he has a lot of self-confidence in his own plans, though they usually tend to fail. He surprisingly has a strong will, though at times he looks like he's weak-willed, especially when he had gone through the phase of the shadow, but a lot of people felt weak-willed when they were dealing with their secrets being leaked out to people. Surprisingly creative, which leads to the mischievous plans that he comes up as well. Originality, you might have some of that at times, but I can't really point out some that come to mind right now. But Yosuke, he does definitely fit into the Magician Arcana very well. It's just when you think about it and compare to his previous characters, which in this case are Kenji and Junpei, he does fall into their category very well. They are somewhat similar, hence why we're hoping for the day Junpei and Yosuke end up, because that's when shit's gonna get crazy, and it's likely gonna hit the fan. And it's gonna kick their asses in the process. Next up, we go into the character's shadow and some symbolism beneath it. Okay, reverse magician is weakness in will, insecurity, delay, and no imagination. As well, It represents one with power, but who is cruel and misuses that power. Basically corruption. Like politicians. Anyway, Shadow Yosuke has the power of insight into Yosuke's motives, quite like when Yosuke starts to develop some insight when understanding about the case and whatnot in the game. But he uses this power to mock and humiliate him. Upon transformation, he also tries to destroy the protagonist with his new strength, describing him as something that bores him. That's also a bit of arrogance right there, signifying that his shadow feels like he's so powerful and above everyone else, because that's what Yosuke wishes to be. Well, not be above everybody else, but he wants to feel like he has something. He wishes to have meaning, which that can also be explained in his actions throughout the social link. Otherwise, the shadow is, as I've already said, it's simple as that. The shadow happens to just show off more of Yosuke's hatred towards the world, and how, in this case, especially towards the protagonist, because he's somewhat jealous, which again leads to his social link, of how he got the persona and just suddenly attained this power despite shortly arriving, thinking how it's unfair that how he arrived so short and yet all this stuff happened for him and led to his benefit, while Yosuke's been around here for 6 months, yet nothing of real interest happened, and yet he did not really establish a big of a rep compared to main character. But that's, of course, going into social link, which we may as well get into. Inside the social link, Yosuke has, in his case, the desire to... This is interesting, because I'll put it this way. The second years all share a common interest. They all have the desire to protect others, which that is really hard to deal with, because at first you see how the other ones, like how the first years and Teddy, have each had their own. Well, technically I could throw in Kanji into the mix, but he doesn't really express that until Golden, which I just spoiled it already again. But Yosuke also has the desire to protect others, but his other desire, that's the main one for him, which kind of sucks because it makes it look like the three, Chie, Yukiko, and Yosuke have the same thing, technically again Kanji as well, which kind of lacks the originality. However, Yosuke, in one sense, also has the desire to express how he's feeling, the desire to express himself. Even though you could say Kanji does that as well, that is not more or less his main one. He does desire to be accepted, more or less, but of course that does require to express himself. But Yosuke also has the desire to trust others, especially himself, but more or less he wishes it's also more the desire to trust others. It's a really... Yosuke, again, is an interesting character, but thankfully, because he appeared earlier, unfortunately for the other characters, example being Naoto, he had a lot of more character development. In fact, you'll also notice the development as the game progresses, which you can argue that Yosuke has the most character development out of any character. But really, the second years and Kanji and Teddy have the most. Rise and Naoto did not get as much. Or really, it's just Naoto that did not get as much. But Yosuke, even if you don't work on his social link, you'll notice he develops in the game, which makes you kind of feel bad for the other characters, but oh well. So Yosuke's desire is more or less that it has a bit of 3. It's kind of strange, but it's kind of like, well, again, with Yosuke's personality, it makes sense, considering he's a bit of a wishy-washy character. If you convince... It's somewhat easy to convince him if you got the proof. So in this case, he goes between desire to protect others, the desire to trust himself, and the desire to express himself as well. But that's not exactly... I hope you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. Looking at you, Yaoi fangirls. Speaking of you all, here's a topic for you all. Special topic for Yosuke is Yosuke's homophobia and the claim that he is homosexual. Now, as you've seen, this is where it all began from. More or less, where with the people calling him partner. That's one start. Or really, they kind of pushed that one beyond the original meaning. Now, really, they had to give him a nickname, so I guess partner is the closest one, especially considering they're partners in trying to solve this case. But I honestly find it a bit of more desperate. Next, this is the big one. This is the kicker right here. This is the one where everybody started thinking Yosuke is gay. The fact that, well, Shadow Kanji. That made perhaps every guy uncomfortable. So, if you're getting Yosuke, again, he reacts, but that's in his personality to overreact to stuff. Now, this is how I could sympathize with him a bit. Sometimes I'll overreact to stuff, be it in a sarcastic or serious way, but sometimes sarcastic, and I like to do it in a sarcastic way. But why do people believe me every time? Okay, let me save that for the end. Anyway, so Yosuke overreacts because he felt really uncomfortable. Now, to the homosexuals, which the homosexuals would find that insulting. It's like, why are you getting uncomfortable? What's wrong with you, ass? Like, what's wrong with being homosexual? Which I've already covered as to why I think Kanji is not homosexual, both in his character analysis, and I expressed it a bit more in one of the Paper Mario videos, which you gotta check out. But, at least if you watch the Kanji video, I'd recommend you would watch that, you know, because it has actual closure it needs. But because honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a bit uncomfortable, but that does not mean somebody is homosexual. It's a strange argument, and I don't get how they prove it, and how does it convince other people? It's like saying, look at how he reacts. That's not right. He's only reacting like this because he is gay. That's the argument I get from people all the time. It's like, that doesn't make much sense, and how the hell does this convince people to say, yeah, I agree, he's gay because of this? Because of his reactions, I see that as not a problem. Now, the common argument I get from people who tell me that I'm against that Kanji, in fact, I'm against that every character is homosexual. It's like, what are you, a Christian? Like, you're afraid of homosexuals, you got a problem with them? It's like, no, I don't. And first off, I'm not even Christian, I'm not even Catholic, I'm nothing of Christian relations. In fact, I'm not even in a religion. I'm agnostic. It's like, if you prove to me that a religion is real, give me physical proof. And at the point that historians can even agree with this, aside from, you know, acknowledging a person's existence, and that all the things they did, like all these, what we call supernatural powers, like plagued the world, like, what was it, Moses that did that? Like, he plagued those that didn't, put that blood, I forget what blood specifically it was, over their door, and like they wouldn't take the life of their eldest son, like that. If you prove to me that was actually real, I believe you. But otherwise, I'm like, could be worth a fairy tale, perhaps. That's a bit of an insult, and I don't mean to offend those who support the religions. But anyway, people like to say I'm a homophobic myself. I mean, if they go far, I might get a bit uncomfortable, but I can be that in general. It's like, I mean, let's face it, you wouldn't want to be walking around and doing your normal day-by-day business, and then somebody's having sex in front of you. I think that'd be a bit awkward and a bit uncomfortable and unnerving. Though uncomfortable and unnerving might be the same meaning, but yeah. But in Yosuke's case, I don't think it makes sense as to why they go with that argument that because of how he reacts to Shadow Kanji, that makes him gay. So people would call me a homophobe or something, that's fine, but good luck proving it, because your arguments are really baseless. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some people argued with this. No, I doubt my fan base would actually do that, but I bet you if I showed this to the Persona 4 community, oh, will there be wildfires? It would be a wildfire, with people getting all on my case. I'd probably be hated throughout Tumblr for a bit, but I don't really care. I don't really think that Yosuke is a homosexual. It doesn't make much sense to me. And really, he shows them a lot of interest in the ladies, even beyond that. I mean, come on, he went as far as to get the girls dressed up in swimsuits. That is a bit awkward for me. It's like, really, Yosuke, you had to go do that. You had to go that far. It kind of goes to show, more or less, how much is interest in girls. And need I remind you the beginning of Persona 4 Arena? And technically, if you go in Golden, right before the fireworks festival starts, need I prove more? Yosuke is your typical teenager. He falls under the typical male teenager perfectly. Which makes me a bit sad, because I relate to Yosuke a lot. But then again, Yosuke is meant to relate to a lot of the male players pretty well. But again, in general, it just doesn't make much sense to me. I hear where they're coming from. I'm not saying I don't understand it. I see where they're coming from with the argument. But really, I think it's more or less the fan base just wants their fair share of yaoi. Because really, nobody really started thinking about homosexuality in the characters until freaking Kanji's shadow got involved. And I'm not blaming Kanji's shadow. It's not Kanji's fault, because Kanji's the man. He's the boss. But no, it's the fan base itself. But hey, what can I do? As long as they love the game, I'm fine with it. But it's just... I don't even want to insult people who do it. Do see the main character and Yosuke together? I am against that pairing to no end. Almost as much as main character Naoto. Almost. Well, actually, no. It's the other way around. I almost dislike the main character Naoto as much as main character Yosuke. I absolutely despise main character Yosuke. I die a little inside every time I see something related to them on my dashboard in Tumblr. It's really... I don't see why people do that. Again, I could say the same with Yukiko and Chie, which I think I'll get to that in the Yukiko video, which is just absolute... Now here's where people would obviously call me out and say, what are you, a homophobe? It's like, no. Especially for one, considering my brother's a bisexual and one of my closer friends who I haven't talked to in a while, Gloom, is homosexual. I don't think I am, and besides, again, Yosuke might have gone through a phase where he thought he might have been gay, and will absolutely despise the thought, but hey, as I've said with, I think in Kanji's video, every person pretty much goes through a phase, and Kanji just expresses that point, but you might not really think about it as much, because some people will think about it for, what, 5 minutes? Some might think about it for 5 days, some might think about it for 5 months, even 5 years, who knows? But every person goes through a point where they question their sexuality, and there's nothing wrong with that. So say if Yosuke's ever questioned it at one point, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think he's gay. Plain and simple, and I've already explained my reasons why. He pretty much shows a big interest among the ladies, and always likes to tease them sometimes, especially with his big interest in Rise, but that's more or less an infatuation. And I honestly think he has a thing for Chie. It's just a love-hate relationship, which that one I'll have to explain in the shipping video. Anyway, my final opinion and how I relate to him, because I think it's time I pass throughout all that. But hey, if you want to try and call me on and being a homophobe, by all means, go for it. But actually have some literal proof, not baseless conjecture. Simple as that. So if you want to start something, that's your own call. And I may sound like I'm provoking, but hey, if you want to prove that Yosuke is gay, by all means try. Because I don't think it makes any sense. The arguments I've seen are just baseless to me. They don't make any sense. Maybe, and I understand where they're coming from, but it just doesn't add up, and it doesn't feel right. Anyway, moving on. I don't want to go back to that topic. My final opinion, and how I relate to Yosuke. My opinion of Yosuke is my favorite character at the beginning. When I first picked up the game and I played it all, when I beat it for the first time, he was my favorite character among all the characters, at least among the male party. Among the female, you already know that goes to Yukiko. Yukiko, hands down. Aw, yeah. I think the second favorite would go to Rise, actually. But anyway, Yosuke, how I relate to him, actually, this is more interesting. It's kind of like what his shadow went through. Basically, a lot of the things that happened with his shadow are what it said. I'm not talking about the death with Saki. I don't relate to that at all. I haven't lost a friend close to me like that. The most is what they moved away. But the only way I really relate to Yosuke is really the desire to trust other people, because I can't trust other people, and I've had my reasons. I've been betrayed. That's why I relate to Cartho Nassi from Knights of the Old Republic very well, which I really want to play that game again. But my computer can play it. It can play it for a bit. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Yosuke, especially in his personality, I can act moody, except Yosuke's not sarcastic as much like me. He can pull off the sarcasm better than me, though. But that's because it's Yuri Lowenthal, his voice actor. His voice actor, that's why. My voice apparently makes everything I say seriously. But whatever. I relate to Yosuke's personality in terms of moodiness and the fact they're both cancer signs. Yeah. What else? Damn, I love how I forget his personality already, right as when it matters the most. More or less how clumsy he acts, and how the fact him and I aren't that smart in class. I can fall asleep in class, but the only time I really fall asleep in a class is math class. That's the only time I ever fell asleep. I didn't really fall asleep in my senior year. Not that much. Did I? No, I didn't, because I had strict teachers. The only time I could fall asleep, like him, was when there was a sub or I didn't have any more work to do. And I can be, at times, I try to be funny, though I fail in real life, but apparently I'm funny here. Maybe not in Let's Playing itself, but around my friends, but I don't think I'm funny. I try to, I won't be denying, we all try to be funny at times. I guess I'm a tryhard in terms of humor. Apparently I do it well here, but I don't do it in real life, but I can be very serious at times, and maybe I have some insight like Yosuke, but really, that's how I kind of relate to him. And I might have expressed it a bit more clearly in the Let's Play, but when I think about it now, I relate more to Kanji, and that's why I prefer Kanji. Once I picked up Golden, and especially because in Golden, Yosuke can goes even farther. He can act like a complete dick to the other characters. He's like, "Are you serious, Yosuke? No, that's bad. Don't you do that again." I am so tempted to just backhand you across the face. It's like, you know what, Chie, give him a galactic punt. He kind of deserves it. I mean, come on. A lot of the things he does, he brings it on himself even worse, and it's just, oh my god, are you fucking serious, Yosuke? And again, Kanji and Golden, just a lot of more depth they gave to him made me love Kanji so much. He became my favorite character. So Yosuke just got dethroned. Funny, because it's the Emperor Arcana character. But yeah, that's pretty much what I relate to Yosuke. Overall, I still like his character, though at times he can be a bit overwhelming and a bit of a pain. But that's Yosuke for ya. Anyway, that's been this more controversial character analysis, so that's probably going to be it. So, tell me what you all think of Yosuke. I'm not in the mood for arguments, but hey, you're the one that's starting them, not me, if you want to go that far in terms of his homophobia, or his so-called homophobia. I don't think he has it. Again, in general, I think he's a straight character, and I think he might have a thing for Chie, and of course, I think he also has a bit of a thing for Rise, but that is a bit more infatuation. The odds of Rise actually falling for him are, sad to say, a bit low, as much as I'd like to see it happen. But yeah, that's pretty much all I think of him. I think he's just your typical teenager, and you can relate to him pretty well, but either way, that's gonna be it. So, again, tell me what you think of Yosuke, and until next video, which the next character will be Waifu, aka Yukiko Amagi, by the way, stay gold.